Hello, we're back with another inventory interlude. I didn't record while I was building this part. I was on like a little live stream with a friend of mine, and we were both working on very similar things. So it was beneficial for us to kind of like work together and help each other out. And it would have been weird recording our conversations. We spent like 4 hours messing around and just chatting about random things. So some of it probably not suitable for a YouTube video. So I'll show you what I've got so far. All right, I'll grab the cube. I want to show you some automatic like scaling that I've got going on in my inventory preview. So I'll get some small things as well. Right, so first of all, the visuals have changed slightly. So what you see now is a material rather than a widget. So I'm passing the widget through a retainer box and painting that into a material and showing the material on the screen. Gives it a bit more of a proper user interface sort of feel to it. It doesn't look like a widget that's strapped to your face anymore. Actually looks like it's a part of the viewport, which I quite like. I'm probably going to tweak it. I've got a few settings that I can mess with just to get it out how I want. We've got little viewport preview. 2D render target. I did set that up previously in my inventory, but I didn't get it the way I wanted it. So these now all rotate from the center of the mesh. Before I had it set up, I had some problems with it. They were all rotating on the mesh's actual pivot point. So this would rotate where the handle is, because that's where its pivot point is. I didn't want that. I wanted everything rotating from the center. So I've got that set up. I don't have to tweak any meshes individually. Just automatically does it. And I'll show you that process in a second. We've got so they're all rotating exactly as I want. This grenade launcher, this particular one was rotated really bad before because the pivot point was the handle. So that handle would be central to the screen and it'd be kind of properly flying around. And the scaling as well, so everything scales up or down automatically based on the size of the mesh. So it gives everything a bit more of a uniform size in the viewport. We've got a little details panel down at the bottom here. Currently I've got the weapons one, and it gives me a weapons details panel for whatever I select. I just haven't created anything but the weapons one yet. If I find, so durability is like a little slide bar thing, a little fill bar. I've just plugged random numbers in there right now just to give me something to look at. Right, so let's get into some of the fine details of this. So the material that we're passing the inventory through, it's very simple. It's just a user interface domain. Blend mode additive. If you're going to do something like this, have a mess with that blend mode. Translucent and masked work quite well as well. I've done additive because it really gives you that kind of UI sort of effect on the screen. This is where the material comes in, and you can just plug that straight into the final color, and the alpha straight into the opacity. It works fine, gives you a really nice look, very similar to what I just showed you. I've just put a few things here just to let me adjust it a little bit. That hue doesn't actually do much right now. But yeah, this will probably get a little bit more complicated over time. I want kind of sort of like scan lines and things on there, so it looks a little bit more like a TV, CRT TV sort of effect. I think anyway, I'm going to have a play, see what I can come up with. The inventory components, actor component, I don't think much has changed in here. It's been a few days since I actually done anything on this, so I'm trying to remember where everything is. But this is all still pretty straightforward. Right, so inventory buttons selected. So when I click on one of those buttons in the inventory, the items, it'll set, it'll give me the index of what I've got so I can find it in the array. Then it's going to spawn the inventory render actor, which gives you that view. And all that actor needs is access to the mesh of whatever we're selecting. So we get the mesh, we set a variable, and we set a variable for the render actor as well, so I know what to destroy when we're clicking on another item. So rather having the same actor and switching meshes, I just found it easier to just destroy it and create a new one every time. There's zero lag in it. There's zero lag in anything at the moment, but I've got a fairly simple setup going on. There's not really much happening in my project, but if I select these, so that's destroying and creating an actor every time I click on one of these, to give you this new viewport, and it's instantaneous. You can't notice, and when I'm clicking on these, that's destroying and recreating the entire inventory and repopulating everything in the inventory. Also does the same when I drop something. It destroys and recreates the entire inventory then as well. So that just flicked my camera around then because my character was colliding with things that I dropped. So I'll have to probably move that drop location a little bit. But yeah, I found destroying and recreating the inventory, every change I make kind of forces me to not put any game logic in the inventory, because I destroy it all the time. I can't save any variables that I need in the inventory because I destroy it and recreate a new one every time. So it's a different way to I'm used to working, but it's helped me, I think. So yeah, let's go back to this render target. Let's find you. I'll show you what's going on in here. Not a lot really. So I've got a spring arm, scene capture 2D, and a light source attached to that spring arm. And the meshes get spawned in the center here. Excuse me. And the meshes always stay central. And so it'll be their pivot point that is central to there. So that grenade launcher I showed you, the handle would be there, and it'll be coming out here. So what I do is I move the spring arm so it's central to the mesh, and then rotate that spring arm to give you that rotation in the viewport. I do this by, where are we? So this just creates the texture that then I feed into a material. The resolution is quite high at the moment. I'll probably lower that. It's probably a touch too high. Create a dynamic material instance and populate that parameter within the in the material. So here I'm just setting the static mesh components with the mesh that we're feeding in when we spawn this actor. And then we're going to get bounds, and I didn't know this existed. I'm really glad it does. So to scale everything and to get everything centered for the rotation, we use this. And if you haven't used one of these before, and you're not sure what it does, let me show you a mesh. And I'll grab that grenade launcher because I think that's a really good example of one I've struggled with. So there it is. You can see the pivot points there. So what this should be doing is kind of rotating like that. If I show bounds, so we get a sphere drawn around it and a square or a cuboid around the mesh. So it doesn't care where its pivot point is, it's just drawing this around the mesh itself. And I use this to determine the scale of everything and to determine where that spring arm is going to go. So that spring arm is going to go central to this sphere. So the sphere origin I use for that spring arm, so then it will rotate from there rather than from there. And then I think I use the sphere as well to scale everything. Let's have a look. So yeah, sphere radius, divide by an arbitrary number and set the scale of this mesh. Doesn't matter what size the mesh is then, it's been divided by the same number. So it gives you a reasonably sized mesh. They all scale to more or less each other's size. Now, it kind of depends, like the longer an item is, the more it's going to get scaled down, which sometimes won't make sense because they might be quite long and thin and you might want it scaled up a little bit, so might make some adjustments. I'm not quite sure yet. It seems to be working okay at the moment. My friend who I was working with as well, he took this system and put it into his, plugged it in, and it worked first time. And he's got a very different setup to me, and it was nice to see how easy it was just to plug this little bit in and have it work. Now I get the spring arm, set the location of that spring arm to the center of that sphere that you saw. So that's why it's rotating nicely like it does. So this is just telling that 2D render capture to only show components within itself, doesn't capture any of the world or anything like that, so we can have that nice transparent effect to it. This is just rotating. This is just rotating again. There's probably a better way to set this up. This is probably a bit of a quick and dirty way to do it. But basically, I rotate it, and then once it's finished, I tell it to rotate again, and so on and so forth. So yeah, like I say, quick and dirty way to set that up, but it works. So can't complain. Let's go into the inventory widget. There's still not a lot going on in this widget. So event constructs, it just creates a bunch of buttons. That's for the item sorting. This is when I click drops, it just sends a message to the component, the active component, sorry. This is that weapon stats widget. So we get the weapon struct and populate all its variables when we create it. So these are just exposed on spawn variables that we're populating. Now this is going to change. So what we'll do is on this event populate item stats, there'll be a switch on enumerator or something like that, and it will populate and create different widgets. Alternatively, I can create another variable in here which holds a reference to the type of widget that this pickup's going to have, and then I can just pull that out and say create this widget. Might do it that way, not sure yet. There's a few ways you can do it. It'll give you all the same effect. Just haven't decided which the best way is yet. Then we just add this widget to inventory. Really the only change in here, the massive change anyway, is it's all being contained within a retainer box. This retainer box is what sends the texture. It's like a 2D render target, really, like we use for our preview. And it sends an image of everything that's within the retainer box to this texture. And then this is the texture that gets drawn on the screen. And that gives me a lot of freedom to mess around and play with that texture in the future and create some crazy effects. One thing I want to do is make my inventory kind of like flicker and glitch out. So if you've taken a lot of damage, or your inventory is becoming unstable in some way, which I'm not sure if I've discussed with anyone yet, but a part of the gameplay is your storage solution can become unstable, and I want a visual aspect to that. I want the inventory to kind of glitch out and freak out a little bit when you're looking at it, just to warn you, just like as a visual cue to say, yeah, you need to do something here to fix this. So yeah, it's all in a retainer box. Makes life easy to do that. The only thing I did notice is, do I have background blur anymore there? No, I think I might have got rid of it because it just wasn't working with the retainer box and the material background blur at all, which was a shame because I quite like that background blur, but it's probably something I can do within the material. We'll see what I can play with. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this update. Just a lot of visual things. I do have to move on to equipping these weapons again soon because they all shoot. They've all got the mechanics, the code to actually shoot and spawn projectiles and cause damage. And these target dummies aren't getting used anymore because I can't actually shoot them. I like that effect. I'm getting sidetracked here, but hopefully the video is going to pick that up nicely. That was an accident. I didn't mean to do this, but I like it. So I'm going to try and figure out a way of using that somewhere because it's a very nice accident. So, yep, that's it for this episode. Hopefully next episode we'll be equipping these, like I was just saying. I might show some of my work on that as well, depending on how or when I work on it. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Speak to you next time.